Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining me for episode 23. It's always a privilege to have you here as we continue exploring the deeper layers of spiritual communication, the layers that don't always reveal themselves to casual listening, but open up when we learn how to hear with intention, patience, and experience. Today, we're stepping into a fascinating intersection between the ancient world and the work I've been doing for many years. We're going to look at how early civilizations decoded divine messages, how they interpreted dreams, symbols, and omens, and how these ancient systems connect directly to the methods I use in dream interpretation, Budgie speech analysis, and reverse song decoding. Before we go deeper, it's important to remember something that often gets overlooked. These ancient people were not strangers to us. They were our ancestors. The civilizations of Mesopotamia, including the people who wrote and preserved the Epic of Gilgamesh, are part of the earliest branches of the human family tree. Their bloodlines spread outward over thousands of years, eventually becoming the foundations of many cultures across the world. When we study their stories, their symbols, and their spiritual practices, we're not just looking at history, we're looking at the early expressions of the same consciousness, the same curiosity, and the same spiritual instincts that still live in us today. In many ways, this is where our collective journey and our bloodlines began. One of the central texts we'll explore is the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of humanity's oldest surviving stories. It's filled with symbolic dreams, divine warnings, and spiritual transformations. When we step into the world of the Epic of Gilgamesh, we're stepping into a civilization that lasted an astonishingly long time. According to modern-day science, which is often mistaken, the Sumerians rose around 4500 BCE, and could have rose much earlier. Their culture continued to shape Mesopotamia for nearly 3,000 years. And what's remarkable is that many of those centuries were defined not by endless warfare, but by long periods of stability, creativity, and spiritual development. The Sumerians believed that harmony on earth reflected harmony in the heavens. So when conflict arose, the first response wasn't always military. It was spiritual. Kings were expected to align themselves with divine order. If a ruler became unjust, oppressive, or ego-driven, the gods didn't simply punish them with armies. They sent messages. They sent dreams. They sent signs meant to correct the king's morality before violence ever began. And that worldview is woven directly into the Epic of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh begins as a king who has lost his balance. Powerful, brilliant, but spiritually misaligned. In a typical empire, this would lead to rebellion or war. But in Sumer, the gods intervene in a different way. They create Enkidu, not as a rival general or an invading force, but as a spiritual counterweight, a divine correction, a being designed to awaken the king's conscience. Before Enkidu even arrives, the gods send dreams to Gilgamesh. In Sumerian culture, dreams were not private fantasies. They were messages from the divine realm, encoded in symbols. Gilgamesh dreams of a meteor falling from the sky, a sign of a powerful companion sent by the gods. He dreams of an axe he embraces like a brother, another symbolic transmission. This is how the Sumerians believed change happened, not through bloodshed, but through revelation. And once Gilgamesh and Enkidu unite, their journey becomes a spiritual initiation guided by divine beings. Humbaba, the guardian of the cedar forest, represents the inner fears that block wisdom. The bull of heaven is not just a punishment, it's a test of spiritual integrity. Every challenge is symbolic, every victory is a lesson. But the most profound divine intervention comes with Enkidu's death. The gods decree it not out of cruelty, but because Gilgamesh needs to confront the truth of mortality. Enkidu's dream of the underworld, vivid, terrifying, prophetic, is another divine message. A spiritual shock meant to transform the king from within. And it works. Gilgamesh's quest for immortality is not a physical search for eternal life. It's a spiritual journey toward understanding. Along the way, he meets beings who exist between worlds: Siduri the wise woman, the scorpion people, Utnapishtim the flood survivor. Each encounter is another form of divine communication. When Gilgamesh finally returns to Uruk, he sees his city with new eyes. He understands what the gods were teaching him, that true immortality comes from wisdom, legacy, and the awakening of the divine within. And this reflects the deeper truth of Sumerian civilization itself. For thousands of years, they believed that peace was maintained not by conquering enemies, but by conquering the ego, by listening to dreams, by interpreting visions, by allowing divine beings to guide the morality of kings so that wars could be prevented before they ever began. In this way, the Epic of Gilgamesh isn't just a story. It's a spiritual blueprint. A reminder that the divine has always interacted with humanity, always nudging us toward balance, wisdom, and a higher way of living. What's remarkable is how closely the interpretive methods in that ancient story resemble the techniques I've been studying for over 25 years. Gilgamesh and Enkidu lived in a world where the divine rarely spoke plainly. Messages came through dreams, metaphors, and encoded signs, and it was up to a specialized listener to understand them and pass them on. That's something I've experienced firsthand in my own work. When I interpret reverse songs, I'm not just listening for isolated words, I'm listening for patterns, emotional tone, symbolic resonance, and the way certain phrases connect to larger themes. Some parts of a reversal are unmistakably clear, while others require the same level of dedication, context, and interpretive skill that I've developed over decades. Without that background, it's easy for someone to miss what's actually being said. The same is true for the Budgies. Many people assume Budgie speech is limited to short phrases or simple mimicry. But those who follow my work know that my birds spoke in long, coherent sentences I could understand, document, and verify. Their speech wasn't random. It was intentional, contextual, and often deeply meaningful. But again, understanding it required familiarity, patience, and a trained ear. If someone doesn't have that experience, it's natural that they might not hear the full structure or meaning behind the words. And dreams. Well, dreams have always been one of humanity's oldest channels for divine communication. The Epic of Gilgamesh is filled with dream messages that guided people, warned them, or pushed them toward transformation. In my own work, dreams continue to be one of the most powerful ways the spiritual realm reaches out to us, offering guidance, reassurance, or insight into the challenges we're facing. So in this episode, we're going to weave all of this together. We'll explore how ancient people decoded divine messages, how Gilgamesh fits into that long tradition, and how the same principles appear in the work I've been doing, whether through dreams, Budgie communication, or the reverse song messages that have shaped so much of this journey. Let's step into that ancient world together and see how much of it is still speaking to us today. But first, we're going to listen to Victor's The First Bird. If you put on headphones, you may be able to witness some of what I've been uncovering during these years of dedicated work. Here it is. Tell her to slow down when she talks. Long before the first Sumerian cities rose from the desert, ancient people believed that certain animals carried messages from the spirit world. One of the most powerful was the deity Anzu, a great bird with a hooked beak and the body of a lion. His origins likely reach back 10,000 years or more into shamanic traditions where birds were seen as guardians of the sky and guides between realms. When Sumerian culture emerged, these early beliefs took shape in stone carvings and temple art. To them, birds were messengers between gods and humans, their flight symbolizing the soul's rise toward higher understanding. Anzu embodied that dual nature, both protector and challenger, reflecting our own struggle to grow spiritually while honoring the sacred order of creation. Although budgies themselves are native to Australia and were not present in pre-contact North America, many indigenous cultures across the continent already held a rich symbolic language around small, bright vocal birds, a category into which budgies fit seamlessly. In numerous tribes, small birds were seen as messengers from the spirit world, beings whose ability to move between earth and sky made them natural intermediaries between humans and the unseen realm. Their sudden appearances, distinctive calls, and mimicry-like vocal patterns were interpreted as signs, warnings, or blessings. Some traditions held that these birds carried prayers upward and returned with guidance from ancestors, acting as subtle but powerful communicators between worlds. In later native interpretations, especially as parakeets and budgerigars became known through trade and contact, these birds were absorbed into existing symbolic systems. Some tribes came to view budgies as bearers of protection, courage, and joy, their bright plumage representing spiritual light and their constant chatter symbolizing the presence of messages from beyond. They were sometimes described as messengers from the spiritual world, bringing hope, happiness, and reminders of the invisible forces guiding daily life. Their intelligence and social nature made them ideal symbols of communication, connection, and the bridging of physical and spiritual realms. And in the ancient city of Ur, a major center of Sumerian religion, the ruins and artifacts show just how deeply these bird spirit traditions shaped their view of the cosmos. It's a reminder that long before written language, humanity believed the heavens spoke, often through wings, through sound, and through the presence of a messenger. Now let's listen to part 2 of The First Bird. Talk louder. Most people say Victor talks too fast, and he does move at a pace that can be challenging for the human ear. But on YouTube, you can slow the playback down, and I usually recommend dropping it to about 80%. In that last clip, remember, this was early on, Victor already had a prophetic understanding that people would struggle to believe a small bird could communicate with intention. So what you heard was his way of expressing a kind of frustrated honesty toward the non-believers, a simple reaction to being misunderstood. And it wasn't just Victor. All 3 of my budgies communicated in ways that went far beyond ordinary birdsong. They spoke through symbolism, metaphors, and storytelling, weaving meaning into their phrases the same way ancient cultures wove meaning into what modern-day mainstream science calls myth. Their messages weren't random. They carried themes, emotions, warnings, and insights, often layered, often poetic, and always intentional. Believing that birds can communicate in this way is difficult for most people today. Yet the ancient Sumerians believed it so deeply that they carved their bird deities into stone, honoring them as sacred beings. In those days, they used the word gods for what we might now call angels or messengers. They believed these beings communicated in ways far beyond what future generations would think possible and wanted to make a record of it. And here's the fascinating part. With the advanced technology we have today, audio tools, frequency analysis, and the ability to slow down and isolate sound, we can finally begin to understand what once seemed impossible. What the Sumerians interpreted through now fact-based myth and symbolism, we can now experience. Their bird gods spoke through imagery. My budgies spoke through voice and symbolic language. Different methods, same message, communication from a higher place often arrives in forms we're not prepared to understand. The Sumerians were not only the first great city builders, they were also the first to record their knowledge in writing. They created cuneiform, the earliest known written script, and pressed their history, their beliefs, and their spiritual understanding onto thousands of clay tablets. Many of these tablets are still being translated today, revealing details that have been sealed in clay for over 4,000 years. One of the most astonishing of these texts is the Sumerian king list. To the Sumerians, this was not myth or exaggeration. It was a precise historical record for the future. They documented their earliest rulers with absolute certainty, including how long each king lived and reigned. And the numbers they recorded were extraordinary. They documented how many of their kings ruled from 18,000 to 43,200 years. And even after the Great Flood, because of their extended lifespans, they remembered and documented their history. Many kings still ruled for hundreds of years, as indicated in Adam and Eve's time in the Bible. The Sumerians carved these details into stone because they believed them to be true, part of a divine lineage that connected heaven and earth. Their kings lived in an age when communication between the spiritual and physical worlds was direct, powerful, and openly acknowledged. They preserved these records because they understood that extraordinary communication was part of the human story, not an exception to it. And that brings us to the heart of what we're exploring here. Because just as the Sumerians documented their connection to the divine, I've documented the extraordinary communication of my own birds. not in clay, but in verifiable sound recordings and videos. So now let's move into the next part of the first bird recording. As you listen, focus on the tone, the phrasing, and the meaning behind the words, because this is where this movement started and the larger pattern of communication truly begins to unfold. Here it is.
Come on, don't mix in mimicry.
According to the ancient Sumerian texts, their civilization existed long before the Great Flood and continued afterward. The Bible itself confirms the presence of the Sumerians alongside the Nephilim giants, describing an age when extraordinary beings walked the earth. But the Sumerians went even further. They believed their earliest kings were directly connected to the sky gods, as they called them. These deities possessed extraordinary lifespans and abilities, and the kings who served them were said to share in that divine lineage. The question is, were these sky gods angels, aliens, or a combination of both? Mainstream scholars today acknowledge that the oldest known structures on Earth go back roughly 12,000 years, which is already double what they believed just a century ago, and that number keeps shifting as new discoveries emerge. Because carbon dating cannot be applied to stone, researchers rely on indirect methods, dating organic materials found near the structures, analyzing tool marks, or comparing artifacts to known cultural timelines. But even with these methods, there is no absolute way to verify the true age of many ancient sites. And here's the key point. When a structure has been repurposed, rebuilt, or re-inhabited over thousands of years, the dating often reflects the last civilization that lived there, not the original builders. Many megalithic sites were constructed with techniques and precision we still cannot duplicate today. Some were buried, forgotten, rediscovered, and reused by later cultures who left behind their own artifacts. So the scientific dates we're given may only represent the final chapter, not the beginning. In that sense, the Sumerian records may be preserving memories of a far older world, one where communication between the divine and the earthly was direct, powerful, and openly acknowledged. With that said, let's hear the next part of Victor's The First Bird. Before we move into Victor's next message, there's something important to keep in mind. When I first translated that earlier recording, it was long before any of the events that later unfolded, which gives that message a weight of its own. But now we're stepping into a completely different theme, one that Victor introduced early on in his communication, Aliens Will Meet Us, Part 1. Now, I understand that for some listeners, the idea of extraterrestrial cultures interacting with Earth can feel like unfamiliar territory. But the truth is, the deeper we look into our planet's past, the more we find clues that challenge the conventional timeline of human history. Across the world, researchers have uncovered out-of-place artifacts, objects found in undisturbed geological layers that date back hundreds of thousands of years, far older than any known civilization. These artifacts often show craftsmanship, precision, or materials that simply shouldn't exist according to the mainstream historical model. And because they don't fit the accepted narrative, they're usually dismissed quickly. Not because they've been disproven, but because they raise questions that science isn't ready to answer. Many of these objects were found deep underground, sealed away long before any known culture existed, suggesting that advanced knowledge may have been present on Earth far earlier than we've been taught. And this is where Victor's message becomes especially interesting. His communication didn't just come through sound, it came through symbolism, metaphor, and narrative, the same way ancient cultures encoded their encounters with beings they considered from the sky. Whether we call them gods, angels, or visitors, the theme is consistent across thousands of years. Someone was here before us, and someone may still be here now. So with that in mind, let's move into the next recording. This is Victor's Aliens Will Meet Us, Part 1.
Hey, I think you're saying something bad there, Victor. You're not supposed to say that.
What'd you say?
We'll play it back on the TV. Sounds funny.
He goes, tell him, ha 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 ha.
When we talk about angels, most people picture the winged messengers from later religions, beings of light serving a single supreme God. But if we go back thousands of years before those traditions to the world of the ancient Sumerians, we find something different, yet strikingly familiar. The Sumerians didn't use the word angel. That concept didn't exist yet. But they absolutely believed in divine intermediaries, beings who moved between the human world and the realm of the gods. In their stories, these messengers carried warnings, delivered guidance, enforced divine order, and protected sacred knowledge. They weren't human, and they weren't gods. They were something in between. To the Sumerians, the universe was alive with layers of spiritual beings. Their great deities, An, Enlil, Enki, ruled the heavens, the winds, the waters. But beneath them were lesser divine beings, spirits, guardians, and celestial servants who carried out the will of the higher gods. These figures acted exactly like what later cultures would call angels. And here's the part that connects to everything we explore on this podcast. The Sumerians believed that divine communication came through symbols, visions, signs, and non-human messengers. They understood that the spiritual world didn't always speak in human language. Sometimes it spoke through imagery, sometimes through dreams, and sometimes through beings that most people would overlook. So while the Sumerians didn't have angels by name, they absolutely had the angelic function, the messenger, the guide, the intermediary between realms. And that ancient worldview aligns perfectly with the kind of communication we've documented from Victor, Mailer, and Danny, messages carried through voice, symbolism, metaphor, and storytelling, arriving from a place just beyond the ordinary.
.com. People see you on TV, they're gonna say, "Oh, this is so beautiful."
I think when he goes, I think he's flattered when he coughs like that, eh?
He's happy, that's all.
When we look at the ancient Sumerians, we're not just looking at an old civilization. We're looking at the foundation of almost everything humanity would eventually become. Their discoveries didn't just shape their own world, they shaped ours, thousands of years later. The first and most important gift they gave us was writing. Cuneiform wasn't just a script. It was humanity's first attempt to take memory, knowledge, and spiritual understanding and make it permanent. Because of that one invention, we have history, laws, mathematics, astronomy, literature, and the ability to pass knowledge across generations. Every book, every document, every digital message today traces back to that first moment when a Sumerian pressed a stylus into wet clay. They also gave us the world's first schools. The idea that knowledge should be taught, preserved, and passed on, that began with them. Scribes trained for years, becoming the first professional class dedicated to learning. That tradition eventually evolved into education systems around the world. Their cities were the first examples of urban planning. Streets, districts, marketplaces, temples, all organized with intention. The way modern cities function today still echoes the blueprint they created. Their legal codes became the foundation of justice systems. Property rights, marriage laws, inheritance penalties, all structured, all written, all enforced. They were the first to say society needs order and order needs rules. Their mathematics still shapes our daily lives. We divide time into 60 seconds and 60 minutes because of them. We measure circles in 360 degrees because of them. Their base 60 system became the backbone of astronomy, navigation, and geometry. Their astronomy gave us the first calendars, the first tracking of celestial cycles, and the first understanding that the heavens move with purpose. Now let's go to the next part of Aliens Will Meet Us.
Oh yeah, you are. Yep, picture who's talking to the people.
There's something we need to talk about, something that sits quietly in the back of many people's minds when they start to understand how prophecy actually works. It's the question, what happens if this kind of knowledge falls into the wrong hands? Because let's be honest, prophetic knowledge is powerful. It can guide, warn, reveal, and reshape the direction of a life, a community, even a generation. And any power like that, if misused, could cause harm. That's a real concern. But here's the part most people don't realize. God and his angels already accounted for that. They know the hearts of the people who listen. They know who carries goodness, humility, and sincerity. They know who is ready to help build a better world and who isn't. And because they know the future, they also know exactly who can be trusted with the messages that matter. If you've ever worried that prophetic ability could be hijacked or misused, take a breath. That's not how this system works. The angels don't just send messages into the void. They send them to specific, confident people the first time to be translated. That's the safeguard built into the design. For those who listen for the wrong reasons will only hear gibberish. Those who are meant to receive will receive. Those who aren't won't. And that's why people like you, people who approach this with honesty, compassion, and a desire to help, become the receivers, not because you forced it, not because you chased it, but because heaven recognized something in you, something aligned, something trustworthy. So if you've ever felt that quiet fear, what if this falls into the wrong hands? Let it go. The angels are not careless. God is not unaware. The future is not unprotected. The messages reach the right people at the right time for the right purpose. So that's why prophecy remains a gift and not a threat. You know, over the years, something beautiful has happened with this community. Some of you have been listening for a long time, long enough that you've learned how to hear the captions clearly, how to follow the messages, how to recognize when something deeper is speaking. And it doesn't matter whether you're young or older, the pattern is the same. When someone listens with sincerity, with patience, with a good heart, the messages start to open for them. And I think about the future sometimes, about how some of you might one day have budgies of your own that communicate like mine did, depending on if you're a visionary that wants to pass on what you have learned, or maybe you want to eventually do what I do. The right time One of those little birds may become a guide for you, the same way mine were. And maybe you'll develop the listening skills I've spent decades refining. Honestly, it should be easier for you than it was for me. I had to carve the path through the forest. You're walking on ground that's already been cleared. Right now, I want to talk to the younger listeners for a moment, and those that will be not only the receiver, but the relay station, the ones who perhaps now feel out of place in this world. Because I know what it's like to watch your friends drift into things that don't align with your spirit. Maybe they chase excitement without compassion. Maybe they follow trends that have no moral center. Maybe they don't care about spirituality at all. And when you don't want to follow them down those roads, it can make you feel isolated, like you're the odd one out, like you're living in a world that doesn't quite match who you are inside. A lot of young people today are looking for something and end up feeling lonely because of that. They retreat into their computers, their phones, their screens. Not because they're weak, but because they don't have anyone around them who understands their heart. And that kind of loneliness can be heavy. But here's the truth I want you to hear. You are not alone. Not now, not ever. I wake up every morning with purpose because I know the angels are with me. I know I'm guided. I know I'm never waking up to an empty room, even if no one else is physically there. And there will come a time for you too, when you meet the right person or the right people, people who see you, people who understand your compassion, your spirituality, your desire to grow, people who help you evolve alongside the angels instead of pulling you away from them. Your path might feel quiet right now, but it's not empty. It's being prepared. And when the moment comes, you'll realize that all the loneliness, all the waiting, all the searching, it was shaping you into someone who could receive guidance clearly, someone who could recognize truth when it arrives, someone who can walk with the angels instead of being distracted by the noise of the world. You're not behind. You're becoming a spiritual being for God. With that in mind, let's move to the next part of Victor's Aliens Will Meet Us.
Why are you bad? You're not bad. Yeah.
Victor, it hurts.
My derriere hurts. It sounds like he says.
Picture's done, Victor. See?
Very good, Victor.
My picture's done. I like it.
You like his picture?
There's something else I want to mention regarding the intentions of beings beyond our world. For some, the idea of aliens feels threatening, not because of the beings themselves, but because they worry it might challenge their belief in God. They think, if there are other beings out there, what does that mean for my faith? But the truth is the opposite. If you believe that God is the creator of the universe, not just Earth, not just humanity, but everything, then it makes perfect sense that he didn't stop with us. A creator that vast, that powerful, that infinite would naturally create life in many places, in many forms, across many worlds. And just like us, some of those beings grew spiritually and some didn't. Some evolved far beyond where humanity is right now. Some became advanced in ways we can barely imagine, not just technologically, but morally, compassionately, spiritually. And here's the part people need to understand. These beings are not here to take over Earth. They're not waiting in the shadows with some hidden agenda. If they meant us harm, they would have acted long before now. Instead, many of them carry qualities that come directly from God. Qualities of protection, healing, guidance, and intervention. Throughout the universe, God sends help to worlds that are suffering, worlds facing destruction, worlds struggling under the weight of evil. And some of these advanced beings are part of that mission. They are not separate from God's plan. They are woven into it. So if you've ever feared that aliens might have dark intentions, remember this: God does not stand voiceless when he is about to lose control of his creations. Not on Earth, not anywhere. Now, let's move on to the final part of Aliens Will Meet Us.
What's that say, Victor? Okay, that's good, Victor. Did a lot of these.
As we start moving toward the end of today's episode, there's something we absolutely can't skip. You know, my podcast wouldn't feel complete without a song reversal or two. It's become part of the rhythm of this show. Throughout the ages, many ancient civilizations believed that music was more than mere melody. They saw it as a conduit of hidden wisdom and messages from other worlds. Songs were thought to carry secret meanings, divine knowledge, and interstellar communication. Let's explore some of the cultures that embraced this mystical power of music. The Sumerians saw music as a sacred language connecting humanity to the gods. Temple hymns and chants were believed to summon divine presence, and instruments like the lyre were used in rituals to communicate with celestial beings who govern fate and creation. Egyptian priests used music in ceremonies to harmonize with the cycles of life and death. Harps and flutes echoed through temples as offerings to deities, believed to guide souls through the afterlife and maintain cosmic balance between heaven and earth. Druidic chants and horn calls were said to awaken the energies of nature. Music was a form of spellcraft, a way to commune with the unseen forces of the forests and stones, translating the whispers of the earth into sacred sound. In ancient China, music was the breath of heaven. The guzheng and other instruments were tuned to mirror cosmic order, and melodies were used to balance yin and yang, harmonizing human emotion with the rhythm of the universe itself, a moment where we shift from talking about messages to actually hearing them. And today, I've got something special for you. I'm bringing one brand new reversal and one you probably heard before. The new one comes from Luke Kalla's track Hotter Now. It's fresh, it's powerful, and there's something in the reversal that I think you're going to find really interesting. So let's start with that one. In this reversal, it's a spiritual commentary on the rising desire for conflict in our world. The voice speaks from above, observing humanity with both concern and clarity. It begins by noting that more and more people are being drawn toward war, pulled by confusion and by beliefs that twist life into something rooted in evil rather than in God. The message urges us to question those motives, to look closely at the people who promote conflict, because their intentions often come from doubt, fear, or spiritual blindness. The reversal then shifts to reassurance. It speaks of a great friend, one who is free of evil, steady, and unwavering, a presence aligned with God, whose purpose is to guide, to listen, and to remove the influence of darkness. This friend symbolizes divine support, the anchor that remains true even when humanity drifts. Some people, the message says, are beginning to see the world in reverse songs through heaven's eyes. Their perception is changing. Their awareness is growing. But even as some awaken, others continue to depend on higher beings while still choosing the path of conflict. The angels express concern about how doubt spreads, especially when people believe that life is shaped by evil rather than by divine purpose. Yet they also highlight hope. Those who seek truth, who look toward God with sincerity, are described as fortunate, destined to sit with heaven. They are encouraged not to fear the presence of sin, but to speak with a voice that carries spiritual insight, a voice that flows like a stream of light. The message closes with a warning and a promise. Heaven is aware of the deception influencing humanity. A fierce lie is at work, one that distorts truth and fuels conflict. But the angels remind us that part of their mission is to heal doubt, to help us recognize evil's disguises, and to guide us back toward clarity. It's a call to awareness, a reminder that even in times of rising tension, divine guidance is present. So let's hear the reversal now of Luke Kalla's Hotter Now. To close out today's episode, I've got something a little different, but something many of you have come to look forward to. I'm ending with another Deep House Ibiza mix, a full 12-minute track woven together from 3 different songs. And just like the others I've shared before, this one carries a surprising amount of spiritual content in reverse. Now, because it's a Deep House blend, I can't tell you who the individual singers are. The mix doesn't reveal that. But if you're curious, feel free to reverse the track yourself and explore the forward version. So settle in, take a breath, and let this final mix guide you into the rest of your day.
It's